Hey everybody, it's Brooke with the Buttered Home and welcome to my messy kitchen. Today we have a very special and healthy recipe for you. Today we are going to show you how to make our roasted Brussels sprouts with a little twist. To them we add some red onions, some chopped pecans, and some delicious dried cranberries. So if you are or you have kids that have trouble getting their vegetables in, this is a great nutritious way to get them to eat their vegetables. If you're like me and you're a child of the 70s, chances are your mom put Velveeta on your vegetables just to get you to eat them, or you could have sat in the dark in the dining room until you finished alone. I may or may not have had to do that with some Lasur peas once or twice, just because I just was not a fan, and I'm still not a fan of those little green peas. I'll eat them in certain things, but as far as just a big pile of them on my plate, I can't do it. That's rocked me from my childhood. So that's more than you ever wanted to know about me, but today we're going to show you a tasty and nutritious way to help you get your vegetables in without drowning it in a whole lot of cheese. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Now, cheese is good. Cheese it's like bacon. It makes everything better. But this is a good, healthy way to get those Brussels sprouts in. Now, Brussels sprouts, you either hate them or you like them, okay, or you're like me and you love them. This is also a great way to cook them so they don't really kind of stink your house up too bad too, because they'll emit this gas. It's a lot like cabbage sometimes that gives kind of a weird smell. So this is a great way to cook them. So we're gonna turn the camera overhead now so that you can see exactly what we're up to today. All right, so our recipe calls for a pound of Brussels sprouts, trimmed and halved. And so I've got most of them done in here, but I just wanted to show you kind of what I do. A lot of times whenever you get Brussels, they'll come in like three or more different sizes. Your goal is when you're cooking anything like this, you want to get it all to about the same size. So while the recipe says halved, that doesn't necessarily always mean every one cut in half, because this guy's kind of small and it's about the same size as another one that we've got in the mix, and that's one I didn't kind of trim. So this one, all you really had to do was just cut that bottom piece off. Same probably with this one. It's relatively small, and then if you have some bad spots on them, you just peel them off layer by layer, and underneath you're left with a pretty little Brussels sprout. So this guy's kind of big, so we will actually have him. And one of the great things about Brussels sprouts is a lot of times they'll have these little spots on them, but when you trim them, the bad pieces tend to just kind of fall away, or they're easily peeled away so that you're left with a good Brussels sprout and you can toss them in your bowl as well. Now, to a rather large mixing bowl, we are going to add to our Brussels a half a cup of chopped red onion. I use a lot of red onion because I like for my food to be pretty and colorful. And red onion is a little spicier, and we like things kind of spicy. So we're just going to add those in with our Brussels. And it doesn't matter if some of your Brussels lose leaves, because those will roast up nice and be crispy and add a lot of texture to our recipe. Then to that, we are going to add half a cup of chopped pecans, and these are just roughly chopped and they're raw. I keep them in the freezer all year long. They'll roast as well and become beautiful. They'll take on some of the flavors from the seasonings that we put in here, and they become a beautiful thing all their own, and you're met with yet another texture. So especially if you have kids, sometimes a change in texture is good, but it also can be bad. So just make sure that you're adding in things that your kids like. You can substitute pecans with walnuts or sliced almonds, something that they're probably more fond of. So the goal is to get them eating this. So you want to add in whatever nut may be their favorite. So now we're going to season this with a little salt, probably about half a teaspoon, and a little pepper, probably about 1/4 of a teaspoon. And then we're going to hit this with about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And I go a little heavy in the pan on the olive oil just so I can make sure that I get everything nice and coated. And to that, we're going to place on a sheet pan. Make sure you get all those good things out and spread them out on your sheet pan, and as best you can to get them to a single layer. All right, so these will go in a 425-degree oven, which I have preheated over here already. And then we will take them out after, I'll check them at 10 minutes and possibly put them back in for 5 minutes more. At that time, I like to stir them up, kind of get them moved around and back in a single layer. And if they're close to being where I want them, then we're only going to cook them for about another 10 minutes. If not, you'll need to add your time in increments of 5 minutes at a time to get them where you want. When you have about 5 minutes left is when we put in these dried cranberries. And I like to put them in just long enough for them to kind of puff up and swell and let some of those juices pop out of them. They reconstitute just a little bit in the oven, but you do not want to put them in too soon because they will shrivel up and dry like a hard piece of candy and possibly break a tooth. So make sure that you add those only within your last 5 minutes of cooking time. We're going to pop these in that oven and let them cook. I'll take them out and check them after 10 minutes, put them back in for 5 minutes more, and then we will be back to show you the finished product. So stay with us. All right, everybody, we are back. We have finished our cook time, which for us was about 20 minutes. So what I did is I put them in and I set my timer for 10 minutes. Then after 10 minutes, I took them out and I kind of just moved them around and checked the color on them. Then I put them back in the oven and I set my timer for 5 minutes because at 10 minutes they were already getting soft and exactly kind of where I wanted them to be as far as the amount of char on the Brussels. So I put them back in, set my timer for 5 minutes, took them out, sprinkled about 1/2 cup of these beautiful cranberries over the top, and then popped them back in for 5 minutes more. Just enough time to get these cranberries to get soft and to kind of plump up and release some of that sugar that is in the dried cranberries. So y'all, they're perfect. They're absolutely perfect. 1 pound will feed 3 or 4 people. If you can get more than 1 pound, I would say double this recipe because this is not going to last long. They're perfectly done. One way that you can tell is if you stick a fork through them, like most vegetables. Anytime you roast any vegetables, you always want to do the fork test, and you want to just easily stick that fork in there so that you can tell that they're done, and they should be soft and easy to go through. It's just like a baked potato. If it's hard or it gets stuck and you can't get your fork out, then they need to cook just a little bit longer. So let's turn the camera around and we will wrap things up. These beauties are fantastic. They will change the way that you think about your vegetables. Now, one of the things that you can also do is you can try this with other vegetables as well. Naturally, if you're cooking a less dense vegetable than, say, these Brussels sprouts, then you'll want to adjust your cook time lower. If you're cooking a more dense vegetable like potatoes or sweet potatoes, you're going to want to adjust your cooking time up. So the 10-minute rule, by checking it every 10 minutes, is really the way to go. When you cook things like this in the oven, you're almost committing to it in a way that maybe you wouldn't with your crock pot or your electric pressure cooker. So set a 10-minute timer, check it lovingly every 10 minutes until it gets to where you want, and that way you don't overdo it or underdo it. That's my reasoning, and it's not rocket science. You don't have to worry about it, especially if you can cook your protein ahead of time or by another method. Then you can commit to every 10 minutes of checking things like roasted vegetables. So we hope that you'll try this recipe. Like all of our recipes, it can be found at thebutteredhome.com. We have a nice search function there where you can type in what you're looking for, and you can put in Brussels sprouts, and everything we do with them will come up in one place for you. We're real proud of our website, especially recently. We have just redone some things to make it cleaner, easier to navigate, and we would love for you to give us a visit there. Also, if you're not already, make sure that you're subscribed to all of our social channels, because we like to have fun, and social is where it's at. That's where we like to have fun. So we want you joining us on all of our social channels, especially our YouTube channel, and make sure you ding the bell there so that you can be notified whenever we drop new videos like this one. Y'all, it's time for us to eat. So I'm gonna go and enjoy these wonderfully sweet and crunchy Brussels sprouts. No Velveeta cheese needed. As usual, from the buttered home to your home, we love you guys. Bye.